In the quiet hills of West Virginia, a dead woman refused to stay silent. Her body was buried, her neck broken, and her killer thought the earth would keep her secret. But a month later, she came back. Not as flesh, not as memory, but as a ghost with a purpose. And what she whispered from beyond the grave would lead to the only murder case in U.S. history, solved by a ghost. This is the story of the Greenbrier ghost, where death was not the end, it was the witness. In the fall of 1896, in the remote hills of Greenbrier County, West Virginia, a young woman named Zona Heaster met a man called Erasmus Stribling Trout Shue. Zona was about 23. Trout was older, a blacksmith by trade, known locally for his skill, and whispered in private for a temper. Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, didn't like Trout from the start. She'd heard rumors that he'd been married before, that his prior marriages had ended badly. She saw in his eyes something that made her uneasy, but she could not stop what was coming. Zona and Trout eloped. Soon they were married. At first glance, their early months together appeared uneventful. Zona seemed to slip seamlessly into Trout's world. But as the days passed, subtle shadows began to creep in. It started with the little things. A sharp tone, flashes of impatience, words that lingered longer than they should. When Zona's mother visited, she wore a practiced smile, offering comfort where she could. Zona, in turn, offered gentle reassurances. She insisted she was fine. Yet beneath the surface, Mary Jane couldn't shake the feeling that something far darker was lurking behind those carefully arranged smiles. On January 23, 1897, the ordinary rhythm of the town shattered. That morning, Trout Shue left his blacksmith shop, running errands as usual. He sent a young boy to check in on Zona, to see if she needed anything from the store. The boy approached the house, climbed the steps, and then he froze. At the foot of the stairs, Zona's body lay motionless. Her eyes were wide open, fixed, staring. Were they frightened or simply stunned? Trout returned home, lifting Zona's lifeless form to the bedroom and dressing her with meticulous care. Her neck was concealed beneath a stiff, high collar. A thick veil was wrapped around her face. Some would say a bow was tied tight beneath her chin, a desperate attempt to hide something unspeakable. When the coroner arrived, Trout resisted any thorough examination, insisting on no deeper inspection. He wept, overcome, sensitive, distraught, but not cooperative. The first verdict, death by heart disease. Then, rumors swirled, whispers of childbirth, though Zona was not pregnant. Mary Jane heard these rumors. Others noticed how the body seemed too carefully arranged, too controlled. Zona was buried the very next day, the West Virginia soil cold and unforgiving. The house fell silent. The hills seemed to hold their breath. But grief, especially a mother's grief, does not settle easily. For Mary Jane Heaster, something about her daughter's death would not rest. It festered, a suspicion that this was anything but natural. For nearly a month after Zona's funeral, Mary Jane was tormented by sleepless nights. She prayed, she wept, she hoped for signs. Then, something unimaginable happened. 4 nights in a row, Zona's ghost came to Mary Jane. Not vague dreams, but vivid visitations. In her small house, when the moon was low and mist curled in the valley, she saw her daughter in spectral form. Zona told her exactly how she died. That Trout Shue had snapped her neck, that he had crushed her throat, broke her windpipe, twisted her so that her head could turn as far as it could. She described bruises, ligatures torn, details no one could have known, or so it seemed. She said she was murdered. These visitations woke Mary Jane from sleep, weeping, shaking, demanding justice. At first, when she told neighbors, they thought she was grief-mad. But the story spread. The ghost story, the exact way the head had been placed. The collar, the veil, the stiffness. Every strange detail that had seemed odd now matched what Mary Jane was being told in the spirit. Mary Jane went to the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston. She pleaded, she demanded, she told him, "Zona came to me. She said what Trout did. He didn't know what to make of it. A ghost? Testimony from beyond?" In 1897 Appalachia, superstition sat beside daily reality. But Mary Jane's insistence, her clarity, and consistency made people uneasy. He agreed to reopen the matter. Deputies searched. Witnesses who had been at the house, neighbors. They examined the dress Zona had worn, the veil, the collar. Then came the exhumation. Zona's body was disinterred. A proper autopsy was ordered. What they found was ghastly. The neck was broken, a shredded windpipe, ligaments torn, signs she had been strangled or had force applied. The bruises under the skin, the collar had covered them. The high-collar dress had hidden her neck. Some say her head was very loose upon the neck, that it would drop from side to side when not supported. Trout Shue, confronted, was shaken. The physical evidence aligned with the ghost's description. It was uncanny, unbearable. The more folks heard, the more they believed that something unearthly had revealed the truth. Something that no eyewitnesses, no normal investigation had yet uncovered. The trial was unlike anything the region had seen. Trout Shue was charged with murder, first degree. The prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence, bodies, bruises, timing, witness observations, but also on the testimony Mary Jane gave about what her daughter's ghost had told her. Ghost testimony, evidence from beyond the grave. The defense tried to belittle Mary Jane, suggest she was imagining, driven mad by grief or superstition. They pointed to the lack of witnesses to the strangulation. They said, "Nobody saw this happen." They claimed the evidence was weak. But the description of the injury, the facts under the dress and veil, the body's condition, they matched Mary Jane's story so well that jurors could not ignore them. In the end, the jury needed just an hour to reach a verdict. Guilty. Trout Shue was sentenced to life in prison in the state penitentiary at Moundsville. Some locals said the ghost didn't literally testify in court, that the judge instructed the jury to disregard supernatural claims. But by then the physical evidence and the mother's account, inspired by those nightly visitations, had already tipped the scales. Trout Shue died in prison in 1900, just a few years into his sentence. An epidemic swept through, claimed him. He was buried in an unmarked grave. Zona's mother never stopped whispering about what had happened. For many, she became a figure of relentless faith. Some say that without her vision, without her refusal to accept silence, Trout would have gotten away with murder. Over the decades, the story turned mythic. Some embellishments crept in. People said the ghost actually spoke in front of townsfolk. Others say the murderer was more cruel than the records show. Some wonder if Mary Jane, being intelligent and sharp, had already suspected foul play, knew enough to push for exhumation, and used the ghost story to force authorities to act. Regardless, the case stands alone, the only known case in U.S. legal history where a ghost's testimony, through a relative, led to a conviction. A phantom judge, in a way, oversaw the truth. Imagine being buried alive in your own silence, your death ruled natural. your body washed, veiled, hidden. No one sees the crime in the flesh. Then, from beyond, you reveal the truth. That's what Zona did. The high collar, the large veil, details meant to hide, to shame, to silence. But instead they hid evidence. The delicate covering over something ugly, something violent. The mother's courage. Not many would believe her. She was an ordinary woman in a rural corner of America in 1897. Yet she held on. To faith, to love, to a conviction that death was not the end of truth. And most chillingly, that even when someone dies, sometimes justice waits. Sometimes justice demands that the dead speak. There are questions that still send shivers. Did Zona actually visit her mother supernaturally? Or were the dreams/visions psychological, a manifestation of grief? Some historians suggest Mary Jane pieced together the truth by observing Trout's behavior. The wound hidden by clothing, by rumors, then used the ghost story to force a legal reopening. Could Trout have done it in a fit of rage over something minor? Some versions claim the argument started because there was no meat for his dinner. Others say Zona had displeased him in a small way. No contemporary record confirms exactly that. But folklore loves those small, human-rooted conflicts turned deadly. There is the matter of motive. Trout's previous marriages ended oddly. One wife divorced him after he abandoned her. Another died under strange circumstances. He claimed an accident. Do those previous stories hint at a pattern? Did the community already suspect him before Zona's death? Did Mary Jane know more than she ever said? So what are you left with when the night is quiet and the woods outside your window silent? You're left with truth reaching out from the grave, with a mother's heartbreak so strong it shattered assumptions, with a crime that hid in cloth, in veils, in soft words, and with a verdict written not merely in flesh and bone, but in whispers of the unseen. Zona Heaster Shue lies in Soul Chapel Cemetery in Greenbrier County. The trees still sway. The earth still holds her body. But her story, her voice echoes. The Greenbrier ghost reminder. Sometimes, when you think someone is truly gone, they're just waiting for someone courageous enough to listen. If the story made your skin crawl, if it made you glance behind you, do this. Subscribe. Because there are more stories out there, true ones, that will invade your thoughts, haunt your dreams, and make you question everything you thought you knew about life and what comes after. Until next time, and may the restless find their peace or justice.